Hi, everyone. Welcome to Food Talk with Dani Nierenberg. Today, I get to chat with my friend, Stacy Dean, the Carbonell Family Executive Director at the Global Food Institute at the George Washington University. What a mouthful. On October 28th, Food Tank, and we're going to call them GFI throughout the podcast, are partnering to host the first annual Food and Agriculture Policy Summit in Washington, D.C. Again, that's on October 28th. We're very excited. It will also be live stream, and you can find out more information at foodtank.com. Stacy, thanks for joining me.
I'm so pleased to be here, and it's good to see you again. We were just together last week, and it's twice in 1 week.
Yeah,
It's wonderful.
that was fun there at Harvard Law School. That was it. You were great on that panel, by the way. I didn't get a
Thank you.
chance to tell you afterwards. Um, GFI is fairly new. Can you tell us why it was started and what you all are up to?
Yeah, happy to. I think, Danny, you make the case effectively and so persuasively through Food Tank that we need people working at the intersection of agriculture, nutrition, food, environment more than ever, given the challenges that we face. The challenges are significant and they're urgent. And so George Washington
Mhm.
University wanted to use the power of this incredible university and bring them to bear in some of those critical debates. So that means through the Global Food Institute, we're going to be setting up a food leadership minor to help create food leaders of the future. We want to make sure that we are supporting, driving interdisciplinary research, but not just on campus, in partnership with food leaders out in the world making an impact. And we want to use our convening power here in Washington, D.C., just like we're doing at the end of the month with
Right.
you all, to bring together policy leaders and some of these incredible change makers out in communities and from across the globe to bring where the change is happening to policy officials so that we can seek to scale for the future.
No, it's really exciting, and I'm so glad. I feel like something like this was needed, especially in DC. But you mentioned some of the challenges that we're facing with academia and academics under attack. How is, GFI sort of navigating the space right now?
Well, I think, yeah, that's a really good question. It is a really tough time, I think, for academics. But the work that we do, right, which is educating students, which is fostering leaders, which is advancing research,
Right.
that doesn't change. And I think our leaders and our professors are still just as committed to doing that work. And in particular, here, trying to pull across disciplines. We have projects like with engineers and public health leaders thinking about food systems. And that's exciting work. And we're trying to keep our heads down and focus on those activities.
Yeah, no, it's really important to be fostering those young leaders and continuing the research. I feel like a lot of what you learned being at USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, you've brought a lot of that experience and knowledge to GFI. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I had the chance to help lead the federal nutrition programs under Secretary Vilsack under the Biden administration. And we had people coming in wanting to talk to us about the changes that they wanted to see for the food system. Let's say specifically with respect to making sure that we were offering healthy food for
Right,
individuals using the federal nutrition programs. And a lot of them had great ideas, but they really just did not know how to translate their knowledge and their learning
right.
over to what's actionable and practical and useful for federal policy officials. So I'm really trying to make sure that what we're doing is that translation work and also being relevant to the moment. What are the
Right.
conversations we're having? And as we think about, the longer term research, what are the critical debates of 2 or 3 years from now? So that's what we're going to try to do. So we're not going to be turning over 20-page
Right.
research memos to policy officials, but trying to convert what we learn to what they need. What's a rule, a guidance, an initiative they could explore that will help drive change?
Right. So you mentioned, all of the work that you've done on federal nutrition programs. You said earlier this summer in an interview that SNAP benefits are set at a level where it is actually challenging for households to be able to purchase a basic nutritionally adequate diet. When the SNAP cuts that happened this year, can you talk about the impact on families and how this these decisions are really making folks reevaluate how they spend their, their food dollars.
Yeah. So Congress, as you point out, passed a law earlier this year during the summer that will have really big changes on SNAP. I think sort of in three general categories. One is they're reducing who's eligible for SNAP. They're introducing a number of new eligibility tests that will make it harder for people to participate. And they're really generally targeted at individuals who are unemployed, but that or
Right.
sporadically in and out of work and there's just a lot of documentation they're going to have to do to prove that they're working and that, honestly, they're in jobs that aren't very high quality and can be up and down in terms of
Right.
hours.
Right.
Another category is they're reducing benefits for some households, just not acknowledging expenses that they have that conflict with their ability to pay food. So we'll see average benefits go down for quite a few households. And then the third big area is they're introducing this idea that states who have never had to contribute to
Right.
the cost of food benefits now might need to be contributing to the cost, which I think really is a huge challenge because, of course, the money they're going to have to come with to pay for food benefits will probably come out of other really critical core services. So these are big seismic changes, and I think they weaken the federal nutrition safety net in a profound way.
Yeah.
And I worry that we should be making progress towards more people having access to healthy, affordable, nutritious food, not moving in the opposite direction.
Yeah, it's such a shame. At the same time, we've seen these cuts to domestic programs. We've also seen the dismantling of USAID and humanitarian aid, et cetera. How is GFI sort of approaching? I mean, you are the Global Food Institute. How are you approaching some of these non-domestic issues?
Yeah, I think, well, we're very much thinking about the changes to AID and it wasn't just the work of that, which is quite quite extraordinary, but the speed and pace, so the disruption, the inability
Right,
for anyone to plan, and honestly, there were partner countries in Europe doing very similar things in terms of
right.
withdrawing aid. So I think we've seen an extraordinary ripple effect, and you and others have been documenting what's been the impact, human impact in terms of human life, or individuals being fed, and of course that's the top issue here. I think we're trying to think also about the community of organizations and people that have been dedicated to either feeding individuals in need, working on improving agriculture in countries as a development opportunity, working on sustainability and climate issues in food and ag. What happens when such a big player like AID
Right,
disappears?
right.
Who convenes them? How are they sharing information? Do their own countries step in? Is it another player like China that comes in and is a big influencer?
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're going to be focusing, as well as continuing to work on projects with partners in the field in countries around the world.
Yeah, so important right now. Over the summer, you hosted the second annual International Food Aid Showcase in partnership with Counterpart International and the Alliance to End Hunger. Can you talk about some of what you learned during that conference?
Yeah, I think a lot of what was happening was just shock, right? That we had these were all partners who are organizations that have partners around the world feeding individuals and communities, as well as working on improving agriculture. And they were really just doing exactly what I was reflecting on a second ago. How do we pivot to this new moment? So that there was, that was those were tough conversations about the
Right.
choices they need to make. At the same time, we also had a showcase for some of the best practices, best products,
Mm,
techniques that partners were using to disseminate good nutritional information or agricultural practices, and that was just incredibly uplifting and heartwarming. Right, to see this incredible work.
yeah.
Of course, it was, just heartbreaking to know that such incredible work had been defunded.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's important to remember that there will be a day after. I don't think the US will always be in this position. Can you talk about, with the dismantling of international aid Yeah, and domestic aid as well, domestic safety nets, the role of the private sector in sort of managing these things. But I guess I would also ask you, Stacy, are you wary of the private sector in any way, sort of stepping in and taking over some of these roles?
Okay, a couple of big questions there. So first, I do think I agree with you that we are not where we are forever. A big,
Right,
the current administration is also saying they want a different vision or a different future
right,
for
right,
how we either support communities in deep need or support, agriculture and development. So one is we want to be a part of that conversation, both with them, with Congress, and whatever comes next. There will be a building and a rebuilding. So we want it to be the best possible outcome. And then, yes, you're right. There are, I think, big players in that conversation are going to be companies. You see, and again, you are talking with so many of them all the time at food tank events on companies that are thinking about sustainability practices, how they develop and create, disseminate products that will support good nutrition and health in really urgent situations, as well as day-to-day feeding, like for example through global child nutrition.
right,
So I think there's a real balancing act there, right? We see they're incredibly innovative players. They have terrific relationships. They understand supply chains. So they bring
right.
a knowledge and just particularly operational ability that needs a seat at the table.
Yeah,
But as we think about what are our goals and what's everyone's incentive at the table, it's also just really important to be transparent about that so that
yeah,
as we're building partnerships, we understand, who's why we're in this,
right.
so that that can be front and center.
Yeah, that transparency will need to be key for sure. I want to go back to something you said earlier. GFI is placing a huge importance on fostering young leaders. And what I'm finding, whether it's like, with young people I meet, on the ground, whether I was in Ethiopia or, with you at Harvard Law School last week, that there's a lot of anxiety. There's climate anxiety. Now there's anxiety about, how young people feel about the future and the future of food and agriculture and finding work that is satisfying and something that they want to do over the long term. How do you sort of help young students navigate this time when they don't know what the future holds for them?
Yeah, there is a lot of anxiety. I'm also, in addition to my job here, I'm a parent of three kids in their early 20s. And I think
Right.
the economy is a big issue and concern in addition to the ones you just listed, and
Yeah.
whether the availability of jobs, let alone jobs in the space we work in, are growing. I think, I, I think one is that I see the youth that we're working with are taking, it's not, sorry, let me restate that. I think that they are viewing the challenge as something that is urgent and it's a roll up your sleeves moment. And how do I get in it?
Right, right,
Part of what we can do through this food leadership education is say, you don't just have to you don't have to just be a farmer. You don't have to just be a climate warrior. In fact,
right, right.
there are so many opportunities in the workforce, whether it's working for a food company, whether it's thinking about really detailed packaging design, all
Hmm.
kinds of unbelievable financing, right? Opportunities to close the gap on where we need to be with the food we're producing and the way we're producing it for the future. So that I take a lot of interest in, which is we want to recruit people all across the campus
Yeah.
in all different kinds of majors to say, this is the space you want to be going into. And then helping them think creatively about how they build that work experience so that they can advance in their career. First job is always the hardest job. And so that's the one we're going to be focused on helping our students get.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wish this had existed when I was, going to undergrad. Can you talk? GFI is planning this immersive residential experience for students next year. That would have been like amazing for me. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's a living and learning community that we're going to call Harvest House, and it's at our on our freshman campus here at the university. And this just speaks to the point that food isn't just an issue or a problem to be solved. It's also a solution. It's a connector. It's
Yeah.
home. It's identity. And so We want our freshmen to feel welcomed and have the ability to connect with other students. So by creating a community that's oriented around food, both the policy issues and the important things they need to learn, but also the warm, connective things. So for example, just last week, I was up there in the evening. We had a granola making session with a bunch of the
Nice.
students, and that was a ton of fun. And you saw students having fun, testing their different versions of granola with yogurt and even in a little ice cream, I'll say, but talking to each other, right?
Right,
And
right.
you know what brought them in? Of course, it was all our great advertising, but it was the smell of honey and cinnamon wafting down the hallway. And boy, those doors started opening, and we started building community, which is really lovely.
That's great. That's wonderful. I want to sort of end this podcast where we started, and that's talking about the Food and Agricultural Policy Summit that Food Tank and GFI and other partners and other collaborators are having at the end of October. Why did you want to partner with all of these folks, including me?
Well, first of all, you're a delight, and you know that just anything with Food Tank is going to be great. But we just don't have enough. We in DC, we have great policy conversations on poverty and hunger. We have great
Right.
conversations on nutrition and food as medicine, or on food waste, or on the needs of farmers. But we don't pull those players together and try to think about that we're in it together, right? And that we need to learn a little bit more about each other. I also think a lot of those conversations aren't as focused on policy and what policymakers
Right.
can do to get to solutions. And so you and I are both committed to that, and as well as our partners at the Culinary Institute. And I think it's going to be a great day, and it's going to be meaty and substantive, but also a little bit of fun.
Meaty, that good pun. Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be great. What do you hope students take away from it?
One is that I think there are a lot of people with that their sleeves rolled up trying to work towards solutions. I think
Yeah,
sometimes students just think we have abandoned them or the problems, and that's just not true, right? So I think exposing them to some of the great thought leaders who are working each and every day. Also, the array of different jobs that are out there.
right.
We're going to have farmers, we're going to have cafeteria workers, we're going to have leaders of global organizations and philanthropy all together, basically shining their light from the different place in the food system. So I hope that's inspiring to students.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Thank you for partnering us and hosting us. It's going to be wonderful. Folks can go to foodtank.com if they want more information. Stacy, where can people find out more information about the Global Food Institute?
Thanks, Dani. What people can do is just go to globalfoodinstitute.gw.edu or Google Global Food Institute. We'd love to have you check out our site and all that we're doing.
Thanks so much, Stacy. Thanks for being on the podcast. See you soon.
Take care, Dani.